Hello, doing a quick recording here of a dual Xeon W5590 CPUs with an RX 570 4GB card. Doing a quick Fortnite test here on Epic settings, and I'll do Epic settings, and then later I will do a test with low settings. These are the settings we currently have. We are at 1080p. The screen is a little bit bigger, so in the recording the bottom will be a little bit cut off because this is a little bit bigger than 1920 by 1080p, but it's basically the exact same resolution. Yeah, so settings are on all Epic here. VSync is off, motion blur off, and show FPS. So currently recording with OBS. So we're playing Fortnite, and we are recording 60 FPS, 1080p with open broadcast software. That's the nice thing about having the dual Xeons, is that you get a total of 8 cores and 16 threads, so you can multitask and record in game at the same time. So we'll land in a busy area like Tilted Towers. That'll give us the best results, I think, for frames. We'll like the test because it's a busy area, so that's my thought anyways. So you can either watch the FPS in the left-hand corner of the screen or the top right. There are two options for that. So yeah, as you can see, we're approaching the Tilted Towers. The frames per second is dropping quite a bit, so yeah. Obviously now that we've landed, the frames are back up to 60, but you might want to adjust the settings just because the graphics card can handle Epic settings, but it's the CPUs that they have a slower, what's known as IPC, which is just see how many tasks they can do per clock cycle. So these Xeons, what I personally use them more for is like multitasking and stuff. So it's like, the nice thing is they will game, but they're not going to be as good as an i5. But where an i5 might not work as well as if you want to, like, let's say, record and game. So right now we're on Epic settings. You can see 40 because the CPU and stuff, like, we're in like the 40-50 range almost, so it's not as good. What we'll do is we'll lower the settings down to high, see what that makes difference. I'll leave view distance on Epic, just it's probably the one setting. Yeah, on high settings you don't lose much visual detail, but now the FPS is a little bit better. We're around 60. I'll play a bit now on high settings, and then in a little bit I'll switch it down to low so we can test that. Sorry, that's pretty loud. We'll respawn. Now we'll try low settings, see what kind of difference that makes. We are recording. When I wasn't recording, I was getting about anywhere from, yeah, about 90 average on low. 80-90, so it's a lot more playable, I find. Whereas if you're playing on an i5, for example, and if you're just looking to strictly game, you could probably be looking more at like 120, 150, like depending on the age of the i5, obviously, but I'm thinking more like a second, third gen i5. Those are still really good budget CPU options. Yeah, so right now, on all low settings, you can see we're at, yeah, we're over 100. But it's also because there aren't a lot of players around here, so like our CPU doesn't have to render in all the other players. So that's nice. Let's run around a bit here. But it is really smooth. Like, the FPS might go down lower, but it's like your game's never gonna freeze up or anything like that, so. Yeah, so if you're just playing like solos, it's fine. Apex Legends runs really good on this. I have a recording as well with these two CPUs. Plays about 50 FPS, but yeah, this is just a Fortnite test here. At 100 frames. Build up, we'll fly around a bit. And I'll just keep playing on low settings, just because it's at the 1080p resolution, everything still looks really good. But yeah, you will get better frames. That's interesting. Yeah, you'll get better frames on low. You can also see the temperature of our CPUs. These CPUs do run a little hotter, but that's fair. Can add additional cooling. 70 degrees for the age of CPU is really respectable. Fly the airplane for a bit. This will give us. Yeah, when you're up here and you have to load everything in, obviously you will get a bit lower frames. But I did find on these dual CPUs, Fortnite was a little bit harder to run. You could also try a GTX 970, that might help a bit with the FPS, but right now I think we're being CPU bottlenecked. In terms of the single core performance, multi-core, like, this is really good for, like, anything related to that. It's because in Cinebench it scores about 1,000 points. So let's just land here again and just keep playing. Yeah, it has more to do with the single core performance than anything, which is the limitation for this. Woohoo. Yeah, you can notice the FPS while recording and stuff, it does go quite a bit lower. That's why I make the video, to show you what you can actually expect versus buying it and being like, oh, why is it performing like this? But then if you try like other games, maybe less single core dependent, like I wouldn't say, yeah, single core dependent, I guess. Like the Fortnite does a really good job of utilizing all the cores, which is nice. It's just a single core performance that's a little bit limiting here. I'm also trying out a new mouse here, so I'm not really used to the sensitivity, so. Why are there so many people here? That's a question. But yeah, we're in the 80s there. Like, it really depends on where you are on the map. I'm playing a really busy game mode here where you can see on the mini-map there's a lot of players. Like, all those blue dots are just my team, but then there's also a whole nother lineup of the enemy team. So it's just to give you kind of, quote, worst case scenario, which I think is important. Mouse cord's getting cut here. There we go, that's better. I'm always hoping for a sniper. Snipers are the best. I just have to see who's around here. But yeah, you see if you leave the area a little bit, frames change. Come on. When do we get a sniper? Yeah, 80 FPS. Ah, my mouse. It's so weird. Yeah, this should really just give you an idea for what you can expect in terms of FPS. Like, now you've got a feel for, okay, when we're away from everyone else, the frames will go above 100. When we're close to other players and we have to load in a lot of stuff, it does affect the frame rate, and this is all important stuff to know. Again, we can check the settings. Right now I'm playing with epic view distance, everything else on low. So, it still looks really nice. Obviously, you can play around with the settings, but with this configuration, this is what I'm using currently. Alright, well, that's the end of the Fortnite test on dual W5590 CPUs paired with the RX 570, and that was an example of gameplay while recording. The FPS will be different when you're not recording a bit, but yeah, that's a worst case scenario. That gives you a long, I guess, gameplay and experience, and you saw I was still able to move around. Obviously, it's not crazy high frames per second. This is an older CPU platform, so where this would be really good as is anything that requires a lot of cores, because we have 8 cores and 16 virtual cores known as threads. So anyways, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks.